Donald Trump, there was a major tornado in Tennessee, and he could actually be down there for a rally, or at least in that area. I'm not 100% sure about it. Or he could have just decided, like, I need to go show leadership. And here is Fox News capturing some of that leadership. Folks, Donald Trump is nuts in a myriad of ways. But one of the ways that I think he is nuts relative to other human beings is his sociopathy, right? Is this sociopathy or psychopathy? I mean, and look, I'm not being clinical here. I don't know. But it is stunning, his inability to be aware of other people's pain. And here he is. He has latched on to a story of a boy who got lifted up in the midst of the tornado and deposited like 2 blocks away. And he wants this to be about a miracle that could only happen to this boy in this tornado.
It's a special time.
At a time when he's president. Just because it's Trump time. It's a Trump miracle. Here it is. And just listen to what he has to ignore to maintain this narrative.
Whatever you can do, it's tough. A lot of them have lost people within the family. One family got entirely wiped out. There was one case, though, I heard a young man an 8-year-old boy was ripped out, flown to a certain area, and dropped off at the street 2 or 3 blocks away. And they found him walking. And he said, I just flew in the air. And he was walking down the street 2 blocks away from his home. And how did his parents do? You know?
We're not for sure exactly how they turned out. They were found deceased.
They were deceased.
The only surviving member of the household lost his sibling as well.
So it took him, and he said, I was carried by the air away from my house. He came back. But his
the house over there and dropped in the neighborhood back behind.
He was over there. And his parents were killed.
And sister.
And his sister. So we're going to go see some of the folks.
I mean, so you really just stepped on my whole story about the because that's a pretty great story.
A lot of them were entirely wiped out, but one of these had a sort of Harry Potter situation of the boy who lived and he was floated 2 blocks down. His entire family was wiped out, but anyway, think about what it must have been like to have been that kid just
flying around.
Maybe there's some cows also flying around in a
It's a real Trump miracle. Just ignore the other part. Just ignore the other part because that's in the way of the story.
Imagine Obama saying one of those families was wiped out. Just entirely wiped out.
Yep. But there was that story about the kid who floated like a witch.
200 yards.
Alice. I mean, what's that?
It's Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. That's right. And then what happened with the other family? They died.
Oh,
they're deceased.
But anyway, still cool about the kid, right?
Yeah, right. But there's still that's pretty amazing. Unbelievable. That's
unfortunately, though, I was making this point. I think it might be good propaganda value for his. Like, it leaves that image for his types of followers of just like, oh, that kid. It's kitsch, right?
Right.
Like,
yes. I mean, and that may be the case, but what's really more relevant, I think, is like now you understand how this guy could basically be running the government as a way of like, let's just keep a lid on talking about this COVID-19 thing, because that's the most important thing. It's going to go away eventually. And if people don't realize it's happening, that's not going to work. And, we're going to talk more about what's happening with the primary and whatnot. But to the extent that Donald Trump's political fortunes are, to the extent that there's anything that is out of Donald Trump's reach, it's quite possible that the implications of the coronavirus, both in terms of look, you have the flu, people die every year, and there's only so much you can do about that. the response to this has been so flawed that there is undoubtedly going to be hundreds, if not thousands, probably thousands of people who will die because of the response. In any situation, we were going to have people die. But because this response has been so poor, we will have thousands more who will die. We will have a tragedy in that respect. We're also going to have a major shock to our economy. The biggest problem is, of course, that we do not have the capacity, the added capacity that we need. We do not have, particularly because, our system is so for profit. And I imagine this is the case with a lot of other places to some extent. China, they can build within 3 days, it seems, like they can create an extra 1,000-bed hospital in any given place. We don't have the ability to do that. And we have no extra capacity in the system. The system is built with an awareness of how many people are going to need beds, how many people are going to need X, Y, or Z type of treatment because of the flu. In this instance, this is an add-on, and we do not have the capacity to deal with the potential of this add-on. And so the whole game plan is you mitigate and you sort of try and spread the sickness out over time so that at least your system can sort of absorb it. It's not coming in one big sort of chunk, as it were.
They're talking about like Manhattan morgue capacity, for instance, like things like that.
And beds and morgue and whatnot. I mean, it's just not there. And part of the problem is that we went from, we're not moving quick enough to the mitigation strategy because we don't have the ability to tell where we are in the growth of the disease because of the failure of our government to perceive this. We had as much time as probably any country out there, frankly, any industrialized nation, and to do anything about it, to create a testing regime, to adopt the World Health Organization testing if necessary. But we didn't do any of that. And frankly, across the board, we were sitting here from the last debate, which was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were saying, like, why aren't the Democratic candidates making more of this? It should be. Something more should be made of it because, a little bit of concerted reading would have told you, like, something's coming. It was, I think the first story we reported on this that made our, headlines, I think, was that plane that was come back where the Trump administration overrode the CDC recommendation. And one gets the sense that there's a whole lot of that going on. But we will talk more about that as the show progresses, and we'll get into...